Hi, and welcome to Access Chat. We're really pleased to have David Wu with us today. David is the CEO of AI Squared, which is the maker of a number of very well-known assistive technologies, some of which I'm very familiar with, ZoomText, Window-Eyes, and SiteQs. But we're here to talk about accessibility in the broader sense as well. So, David, thank you very much. I think you're actually our first major AT vendor on Access Chat in over a year. So. Great to have you with us.
Neil.
Delighted that you could join us.
Thanks, Neil. And yes, thank you for having me.
So, how did you come to be in accessibility? Because I know from you originally weren't at AI Squared. You worked at Intel for some time. So, can you tell us how it came about that you ended up running AI Squared?
Well, I think AI Squared was a great opportunity for me. For one, my family has a lot of vision impairments. So when AI Squared approached me, it was a great opportunity to join a firm that is doing really, really wonderful things for the vision impaired community. And I also think that there was opportunity there. AI Squared has, as probably most people know, our products are around the world. ZoomText is in 23 languages in 40 countries, and typically is in just about every market where it's the market leader. So it was really a great opportunity to join a really good firm with people who are really passionate about what they're doing, passionate about helping the community that they serve, but also because our company has such a acumen in technology, it was an opportunity to get to one of the things I wanted to talk about today, which is inclusion, and why we don't have as much inclusion as we have, and also figure out a way to increase that inclusion so that it encompasses not just more people with vision impairments, but the population as a whole. So I thought that was a really big opportunity for us at AI Squared, and that's why I joined.
Okay, that's great, and absolutely, we're passionate about trying to include as many people as possible. That was the ethos behind Access Chat. It's something that we all firmly believe in. I think that one of the issues that a lot of people have is the unwillingness to actually declare that they have a disability, or even come to terms with it. They may not even admit to themselves that, or consider themselves to have a disability. So a lot of the time that people may benefit from a lot of the tools and products that are out there, they don't actually necessarily even want to think about using them, because that would mean that they have to admit that they have a problem. So I think it's a really interesting area to look at, and there's a massive crossover between sort of some of the usability stuff that I'm also interested in, and the sort of accessibility inclusion stuff. So I think it's a great topic. So how does AI Squared approach the issue of inclusion? What's your key strategic direction when you want to try and include more people in access to the web and the products and services that enables them to have?
Well, let me talk about four themes that we think about at AI Squared. The very, very first theme is accessibility. It really is a tool and a capability that benefits more than just, in our particular case, people who have low vision or users who are blind. There's the famous Forrester Microsoft survey that said that 57% of PC users could benefit from AT. So obviously AT is not just something that can be used by the vision impaired community. I think the second thing is that accessibility today really is still accommodating only a fraction of the percentage of people. I mean, if you were to take a look at the number of JAWS users, ZoomText users, ZoomText Fusion users, and Dolphin users, you add them all up, and you take a look at, depending on whether you believe there's 11.5 million people who are low vision or blind. I've seen numbers from AFB talk about 20.5 million people who are low vision and blind. When you add up all those numbers and then you double that, the actual penetration of assistive technology for screen readers and magnifiers is really less than 5%. Okay, so the second thing is accessibility still has a very, very low amount and penetration into the particular marketplace. And if you start including things like people who are boomers and seniors in the United States, that's 39% of the population, or 120 million people. You can take those numbers and extrapolate those to any other country. But the point is that there's a vast, vast underserved utilization of assistive technology. I think the third theme that I want to touch on today are user trends. We all know over the last 10, 15 years, it's not about Windows and it's not about PCs. People are accessing it on the Mac platform, people are accessing on the web, people are accessing on mobile, on intranets and things like that. And so what's going on here is that if you, for example, went to ATIA or CSUN, you'll see many of the products are still Windows-based products. And for that particular reason, one of the things I think is extremely important for assistive technology companies to expand the way people can consume and create that digital content. That's why at AI Squared, we've come out with ZoomText for the Mac, which is still, maybe it's only about 10 or 12% of the population, but it's extremely important for the education market and the young kids who are coming up on Macs. We've expanded to the Mac platform. We've extended to a full screen reader called ZoomText Fusion. That was launched a few months ago, so people who have ZoomText now have a full product all the way from low vision magnification all the way up to full screen reading for someone who, a user who is blind. And on top of that, you'd be able to put out products that can go onto the web. That's where our SiteFuse product comes into play. I think the fourth theme I'd like to touch on today is industry trends. There are many industry trends that are going right now, and there actually is really, I see right now, a path to a much broader inclusion by using assistive technologies. So maybe what I should say on that particular piece is, if you really look at what happened in the industry over the last 20 years, there have been some major trends and themes. Much of this it's the technology in tandem to regulations that are going on in the marketplace. Certainly in the United States, and I know people are international, so there's other laws aside from the U.S., so forgive me if I talk about U.S. laws, but the American Disabilities Act and the Workforce Rehabilitation Act in the 1990s, what that did, it was spawned a whole wave of assistive technologies like ZoomText, where these are accommodations that individuals can get. So ZoomText, what that is an end user can buy ZoomText or any of our competitive or alternative products. They put it into their PC, and now everything that's on their on their computer, whether it's the website, their spreadsheets, their Word documents, or browsing, everything gets magnified on their computer. But those, at the end of the day, they are individual end users. And what we're starting to see, of course, is there's a major need for corporations. What about corporations who, yes, they can accommodate end users with their individual PCs with ZoomText and any of our alternative products, but what about their most important marketing tool, their website, where they have, in many cases, tens and tens of thousands, and some of the large retailers, millions of unique visitors per month? How do you give accommodation to those people? And that's where one of the major trends that's going on right now in the industry, and SiteFuse is a product that does that. How do you actually get an organization to now include all those people who come to your website? And that's another piece of it, which is another trend, is the industry experience. How do we make it so that accessibility technology is available to anyone who comes to the website who may not already own assistive technology? So those are four trends, and I can elaborate on those as we go through the conversation.
Well, David, I hear a little bit of feedback, but I'm going to go on. So I think it's very interesting that you're looking at the perspective, certainly, of providing assistive technology for people that are vision impaired and blind. But as you note, a lot of people that actually need this technology, they don't even know about it. And that's why I was very interested when y'all started designing SiteFuse, because, and I actually included you in one of the my blogs talking about overlays and it's SiteQues, it certainly isn't meant to solve all your accessibility problems, but many of your customers are not, meaning a corporate website, for example. The customers might not always even know that assistive technology is an option for them. So I think I thought it was very clever how y'all used the tools that you've already created for assistive technology users to actually try to enhance websites. I thought that was a very smart way of doing it. And so you really think that this kind of trend is going to continue to help make sure that it's about the customer experience as opposed to just coding a website?
Well, actually, we believe here at AI Squared, it's you have to do both. You have to make your website WCAG 2.0 compliant, but also you want to be able to develop a tool. And so let's take a look at some of the math on that. Having an assistive technology tool built right into your website does not excuse you for not making your website compliant, especially with the WCAG 2.0 standards for people who own the assistive technology. But the number here is that the number of people who owned assistive technology, certainly from our count, is less than 5% of the people who are low vision and blind. What about the other 95%?
Right.
What about the other 95%? How do you actually include those people? And the most obvious answer there is build a tool that goes right into the website such that anyone who comes to your website now has the functionality of assistive technology in there. So that's one thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is actually a story. Before we actually started coding on SiteQues, we went around and talked to over 100 website owners, and we asked them the question, we said, we really can't build everything for everyone. We actually could start from one point and then go to another area. So the question then becomes, should we design SiteQues for the 7x times magnification population, the people who are on the edge of between a low vision magnifier reader versus a full screen reader? And should we start at the 7x and then version 2, 3, 4 work our way down to the 1.5x crowd, or should we start at the 1.5x crowd and then build SiteQues so that it eventually goes up to the 7x crowd? And to our real surprise, 100% of the website owners said, no, we want you to start at 1.5x. Oh, wow. But aren't you guys under pressure to accommodate people who have really low vision? And every single one of them says, no. Well, I'm sorry, yes, that's true, but here's the issue. If you can build the device that goes into my website that can have mass market appeal, and I can attract the other 95%, if I can attract the baby boomers so that it doesn't even look like assistive technology, it just looks like a utility and a tool that's on the website, I can build an economic case for SiteQues. How do I build that economic case? Because now it's appealing to more than the 3.5% of the people who are low vision blind. I can appeal to the 39% of the aging population. And if I can get more page views, more stickiness, more transactions, wait a second, this assistive technology is no longer something that is for people who don't have assistive technology. It actually becomes mass market. And for that particular reason, so when you allude to some of the ease of use designs, that's why SiteQues is very, very different than ZoomText. ZoomText is built for the power user. Our average user in ZoomText is a 4x user. These people absolutely depend on ZoomText to stay at work, to stay productive, to be able to send emails to their grandkids or to their brothers and sisters or their parents. But SiteQues is very different. SiteQues, that's why the user interface, it doesn't have the very complicated toolbar. It doesn't force you to be able to put all of the different customization. It's just a very, very simple icon, or we call it a badge, which when you roll over it, it expands to expose the tool such that anyone, and it's a very, very intuitive. We put a lot of work onto the user interface to make sure that A, it's discoverable, B, it's usable, and 3, it's useful. And that is one of the most important themes that are going on in the industry, is if you want to make assistive technology break out into the mainstream, build the product so that it can be for the mainstream. And that's our theory behind SiteQues.
Okay.
And sure enough, one more thing I want to say, I can't share all of the stats that we have right now, but I can say that the stats and the metrics from SiteQues you are absolutely seeing more discovery, more usage, and more page views and time spent on the internet for people who use site use, which is an extremely, extremely encouraging trend for site use.
So
Very exciting.
I'm interested in site use. I've looked at it, and I really like the way you design the transition from very simple tool, and it gracefully gets more and more complex and adds more features as you increase the magnification. I think that's really neat. And I think that you're right to also address the lower end of the magnification, because then you're not addressing the niche market. I think that's absolutely right. The one issue that I have with all website-based tools is the fact that you're an island of accessibility in a sea of inaccessibility. So how do we address the issue of people getting to the sites in the first place? How do we address the issue of the cost of assistive tech? And it's not just the cost of tools that you're providing, it's the cost of the components that the industry charges the assistive tech manufacturers as well. Because when I worked putting together assistive tech tools, because I'm also an assistive technologist, one of the things that we found was that the vendors of the text-to-speech voices charged a massive premium for assistive technology companies. So you'd go to one text-to-speech vendor and you'd say, right, I want this and this voice. And if you were to say that you were a games manufacturer, you'd get X price. If you tell them that you're an assistive technology vendor, you'll get a price that's 7 to 14 times the cost, maybe more. So, and that obviously, when you're buying lots of components, because most of these assistive tech tools, you don't develop all the components yourselves, that is going to have a massive effect on the cost of your products, and which of course you then have to pass on to your consumers. How do we break that niche cycle so that we can really get assistive tech like ZoomText, like JAWS, like Window Eyes into the hands of everyone in an affordable way? Because what we're saying, what we see is that it's privileged Western societies that have these tools. Most people, computing is ubiquitous now. It's pretty much everywhere. Most people have access to some kind of computing, but not everyone has access to the assistive tech. How can we deal with that challenge, basically?
I think you've touched on a couple things. I want to hit on 2 points. One more.
Okay.
One more in terms of assistive technology, one more on a strategic point of view. Back to your original thought about voice technology, I mean, actually, the text-to-speech technology in ZoomText is the absolute largest component of our cost structure, which is one of the reasons why ZoomText or any of the alternative products that are out there, they cost as much as a PC. Unfortunately, our industry is still relatively small, and so we do not have the economies of scale to attract much, much lower prices. Although we do okay, because we have certainly volume with the ZoomText product and the ZoomText Fusion product. So that's one piece of it is yes, our industry is relatively small. But let me think about a different. Let me shift over to the more macro industry or the strategy. So what we believe here is that if you take a look at why is that assistive technology has low penetration, I think we all know one of them is cost, one of them is awareness. Another one is unless you're a power user or someone who really, really depends on it, i.e. someone that needs more than 1.2 or 1.5x, the technology actually is kind of hard to use. Okay, you have to learn. There's a learning curve on it. And the fourth one you've already touched, which is self-identification. Okay, but the point is that in all of these different pieces, awareness, cost, all that, the onus is on the burden of the individual to find it, to pay for it, and to use it. Okay, and identify themselves as it. So what we're saying here is there's a paradigm shift going on. If we went to a website and we can show them an ROI, more stickiness, more transaction, more page views, And if we are able to get them to see that, now all of a sudden, a built-in website tool now actually has value to them. It is actually something that they would pay for. And if a corporation pays for it, it's free to the end user. And that is a major, major thing. Because now what you've done is you've shifted the cost from the individual who can least afford it to the corporation who now gets benefit, because not only can they do the right thing by giving accessibility to the other 95% of the population who doesn't have assistive technology, but also it has benefits to the mass market, the aging population, the 39% of the boomers and seniors in the United States. And oh, by the way, if you are able to get a piece of real estate on the, all the site views, by the way, is always on top, on the very top banner, either in the right, the center, or the left of the banner. If you get that piece of real estate, you can now expand services later on. English as a second language, learning disabilities, dyslexia, and things like that. And so now what happens is the whole strategy in this is shifting the cost, or maybe what I should say is building an economic case for the people who have the funds so they have incentive to put assistive technology in the website, and then shifting the cost from them so that the end user gets it for free. We think that's a very, very profound thinking in terms of what we want to do in the industry. And so the next thing I want to say is, if you look at assistive technology and built-in website tools, those are very, very complementary things. They do not cannibalize each other. Why is that? Because if you're an end user needing assistive technology, I need my spreadsheets, my emails, my browser, all that content that's sitting on my desktop. I want that thing magnified and read to me. Whereas SiteViews comes from the other end. It's a specific website building it in. It's a specific website that's building it. It doesn't do everything on the individual website, but if you're the owner of that website, you now have every page in your website have the tool involved there. And oh, by the way, if you are able to get SiteViews or assistive technology onto these websites, that drives up the awareness, and it takes away the stigma of this is assistive technology. It's a simple tool that everyone uses it, and all that. And now all of a sudden you get AT as a mainstream product, and that will be nothing but great things for our industry, great things for the end users, and quite honestly, great things for the corporations and the website owners.
Okay. Antonio, I know you had a question.
Yeah, I was reading this morning that there's an hackathon in Sydney about assistive tech, and you have been talking about the products that you have and that you offer to customers. My question is about how do you find ways to get feedback from your customers? How do you develop the process of improving your own products, and how do you find, let's say, talent, not just talent people to work in assistive technology, but talent people that can bring value to the products that you have and help you to develop new ones?
Well, actually, the feedback for us is fairly easy, since we have a really great installed base of end user and assistive technology, and as I mentioned before, we have customers that are all around the world. Actually, about 45% of our customers are outside of North America. So we have really good international reach. I think the other thing that's extremely important, aside from having those customers you can draw on with beta groups, surveys, all those different things, I think some of the organizations, for example, CNIB helped us with a lot of usability studies on SiteViews. We always talk to the NFB or the RNIB. So there are a lot of organizations who give us feedback on it. So maybe from our perspective, we are lucky to have such a great group of customers who are willing to tell us what they think. And sometimes, we go, oh my God, you're telling us that we don't like to hear, but honestly, we do like to hear about it, even if it's negative. And we do get criticisms quite often, but we take them all in stride.
Well, that's how we learn that it's important that y'all listen to your customers. We talk about engagement a lot, and that's a perfect example of a company really engaging with your customers and learning from them.
Yes.
Antonio, I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't know if you want to expand upon your comments.
No, that's perfect. No, I just in terms of how do you trying to in terms of innovation, what type of work are you doing in order to find to develop your products and to even to find new products that you can bring to market?
Well, there was one other question you had was how do we attract people into the marketplace? So when it comes to product development and strategic development, you have to have several things. One is you have to have access to the market and try to be able to see trends and see what are the needs. The only way you can do that is to actually have an installed base of customers who you can talk to. I think the second thing is you have to have a technology engine in place, one where you can actually start executing onto some of these ideas. I think the third thing, actually the most important thing, is you have to have the right people, attract the right people. We've been very fortunate at AI Squared. We've been able to retain some of the best minds in assistive technology. We've had some guys who have been with the company for 20 years, which is really, really exciting. They know all the ins and outs of the software, and so that's extremely important. And I think the last thing is you have to have the financial muscle to be able to take a risk on new product development and managing that. So I actually came in early from my career from a large company, Intel Corporation, and in that particular case, if they want to go into market, they might place 10 bets and 2 of them might hit. And the other ones, oh well, but in our particular market, it's a little tougher because we're much smaller companies. If you take a bet on one technology, you better hit that technology. You don't have the advantage. So from that perspective, what that means is organizations have to be a little bit more cautious. Means that development might be a little bit slower. That means the marketing and sales activities to promote it and make awareness might be a little slower. But that's just the nature of our particular industry. And quite honestly, it's kind of fun to go through that challenge.
We currently have an apprenticeship program for accessibility. What are challenges when you hire someone to work in your company? Are you actually looking for someone with a specific expertise, or you realize, oh, I need to help this person to train them internally for her to be at the level that I need her to be?
I think it's actually both. It's always have a good mix. So it's not everyone is exactly the same. It's a good mix. We've hired a development team who are just really smart developers and maybe not have technology backgrounds in our industry. On the other hand, we have people who have very, very deep background. Some of you may know Aaron Leventhal, who is our chief architect for SiteViews. He's been at this for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And that's an example there where we were very, very fortunate to have him join our team, and he's been absolutely instrumental in driving the architecture and development of SiteViews.
Yeah, he's an amazing man. He's really brilliant.
I'm delighted that he's going to be speaking at our Global Accessibility Awareness Day event in May. So that's exciting. So I've got a question around appification. So obviously we're talking about the changing nature of technology consumption and how people are consuming products in general. And obviously we talked about the simplifying some of the, you've got your AT power users, the ZoomText users, the Windows users, JAWS users, who are absolutely have to have very deep feature set and everything else. What about the whole sort of app economy? Because we're seeing lots of products coming. I see lots of quasi-assistive tech, some of which is good, some of which is not so good, some of which is in the middle somewhere, that's available for very reasonable prices. But again, it's sort of almost like throwaway technology. When you're paying 99 cents or $4 maybe for an app, you don't invest that much time in it necessarily. And you talked about the lead times and the you're having to place your bets quite carefully. How do you think that the app economy is going to affect assistive technology as an industry in general?
Our view on it is low cost or throwaway apps or technology. We believe that's good. Why is that good? It's good because it raises the awareness. It gets people up that learning curve so that they are aware of these technologies are being used. At this point, you essentially get what you pay for. So there's nothing wrong with low cost or free technology that's built in. There's nothing wrong because it drives usability, it drives awareness, and all that. And then what we start seeing is that people then start saying, hey, this stuff is really cool. But what happens if I have to do something with my spreadsheet? Or what happens if I have to do something with Word? In that case, now people are saying, aha, there are other products that are much more capable. Granted, they might be more expensive, but that's the whole concept of the price-performance curve. And so we actually think those free apps are really great for the marketplace because it gets people onto the ramp.
Okay. Now, Deborah, I know you've got a final question before we wrap up.
Well, I think that's such a good point, David, because it's like we can't stop, nor do we want to, the free apps, the open source, the low-cost apps. But the reality is, if we really want just looking at this from an employer lens, if we really want people with vision impairment and people that are blind really to be as productive as possible, we want to give them the very best tools. And so sometimes it really does make more sense for the employer working with the employee to make sure that they have the products they need so that they can achieve the same results and be as productive, maybe more productive than their peers. I've often seen in situations where we get, an employee that might have a disability, some assistive technology, get them the training they need, and the entire corporation winds up learning a lot by this. We've seen some really great examples of that, of how assistive technology can really help employees be more productive, but at the same time help the entire team be more productive as well. So I think I thought that was an interesting point that you were making, that you want to encourage, innovation in apps and free apps and open source and all that, but at the same time we do need to make sure that people with disabilities really have the tools that they need, the professional tools in some cases, to be very productive and add value to the workforce. And I think that's where AI Squared is such an important player in this field.
That's a really important point you brought up, Deborah, and maybe I can share some information with you to highlight your point about the need for professional products, which are real productivity enhancers versus lower cost. Everyone knows that Microsoft did the community a wonderful, wonderful service by offering Window Eyes for anyone who had Microsoft Office 2010 or above. It was a free product that you can download if you have that Office product, and many people said, gee, if a professional product like Window Eyes is going to be free, that's going to kill the market for JAWS or kill the market for ZoomText Fusion, which is our full screen reader. I can tell you the number of downloads of Window Eyes is massive. It's actually massive. In fact, if you took a look at the last year's WebAIM survey, you'll see that reflected. But here's what the interesting thing that happened. What happened was actually the people who downloaded Window Eyes were actually individual users, people who couldn't afford the technology before. They get the benefit of a really cool screen reader like Window Eyes. But when you launched ZoomText Fusion, which is the full screen reader for ZoomText, we don't see any impact on that. And the reason for that is because the professional market wants something that is easy to use, continues to be very powerful, integrated into the ZoomText product family, has all of the support, has all of the voices that are involved, all those different pieces. At the end of the day, productivity. There is, productivity can't come from free. It's got to be something that is really good and works. And this is a prime example to illustrate your point, Deborah, is having those two things coexist and satisfy different parts of the user community and at the same time not hurting our company's economics.
Right.
I think that's really interesting because what you've got is a pathway, and it's a pathway for people to experience and understand assistive tech, and hopefully acquire skills along the way. If people needed these tools before they could, it may be the thing that enables them to get a job. It may be then that they can then go into an environment whereby they can use the more expensive professional tools. And I'm not against the expensive professional tools in a professional environment. If anything, one of the problems it presents for me when I'm dealing in an enterprise environment is the proliferation of loads and loads of different technologies becomes very difficult and burdensome to support. So actually what we prefer is to have a well-defined tool set within the particular enterprise environments that which we're working in, because we have to test all of these other applications that we're providing to our customers against assistive tech tools. And let's face it, none of them are supremely stable. We've all got issues because they do complex things. So adding multiple different tools adds multiple layers of complexity. So absolutely with you. You know, what we want is good, robust tool sets which are as bug-free as possible. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, we want those cheap, preferably free tools to enable people to take those steps and that pathway and journey into work and give them the ability to get online and access to these products and services. So I'm keen to see both ecosystems coexist and survive, because I think both have a use.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent. So I really would like to thank you for coming on. Antonio, do you have a quick question?
No, yeah, it's related with this topic. For quite some time, I was giving some training focused on digital inclusion, and I had a class where everybody was older than 70, and they were struggling to use the machines and to do some type of activities. And I wouldn't think they would be the type of people that would know much about assistive tech or would be able to afford to pay for assistive tech. So, but at the same time, there are people who have online needs in terms of communication, and sometimes they miss opportunities of having a better life or of saving money doing online activities because they don't really have access to any of this technology, or also because they don't even know that the technology exists.
There's a really interesting market research done by the Nielsen Norman Group, and what they did was they took a look at web usage and performance for the 50-year-old crowd and up versus the 20, 30-year-olds, and what they found was the older population, the boomers and the seniors, had a 43% slower on using the internet than their 20 and 30-year-old counterparts. And on top of that, they found that the older crowd has a 2.2 times higher likely of making an error when doing things like finding something on a website or completing a transaction or doing some kind of functionality. It further went on to say that one of the primary reasons of that is usability and how you design your website, visual issues, and things like that. And so what you're starting to see is, yes, absolutely, if you have these type of tools built into websites, you do include not just people who have low vision and are blind, but also the boomers and the seniors. And that's an extremely interesting value proposition, all the way back to the 57% cited by Microsoft and Forrester in their report.
That's very interesting.
That's something as an industry, certainly as AI Squared's point of view, we see an opportunity going into 2016 and beyond. We have an opportunity to really change and dynamically get this industry to be able to expand out and offer more products and services that have higher inclusion, not just in low vision and blind, but also other constituents. And on top of that, help corporations who I think are right now looking for ways to be able to have this inclusion. I can't tell you how many times I go to CSUN or ATIA or any of the other conferences, I bump into newly appointed accessibility officers at Fortune 500 companies. And I say, oh, what are you doing? How long have you been there? Oh, I just got appointed assistive technology, the accessibility officer. And gee, you know, I don't really know anything, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here at IAAP or CSUN or ATIA. I'm here to learn. And so what that tells me is a couple things. And number one is the awareness is going up there. The second thing is the corporations are saying, wow, this is interesting. But what it also tells me is they don't know. They don't know what the solutions are. Right. And what we're trying to say is those solutions are here today. If you want to accommodate your employees, you have Zoom Text, Zoom Text Fusion, or any of the alternative products. If you want to accommodate those people who are coming to your website, all those external people, you have other tools. You have web accessibility companies who focus, the TPGs, the DQs, the SSB parts. These companies focus on helping you do exactly what you may not want to do. And oh, by the way, you want inclusion of the other 95%? That's where you have built-in tools like site queues and other emerging technologies. It's an exciting time for our industry because these tools exist today. It's just a matter of us finding the right tools and getting the word out. And that's why I think this is a really interesting time in the industry.
So this is something that somehow the marketeers are being overlooked, and it's something that needs to be part of the marketing strategy.
It is, and it is. And I wish I was back at my old Intel Corporation where we spent $100 million in advertising. We can't do that. Our advertising budget's more like $100. No, I'm just joking. The point, you know, that's our challenge. But you know, those are the challenges that we have, and I guess that's what makes it fun.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's been a really interesting chat. Looking forward to you joining us on Twitter. Thank you once again, David Wu.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.